Welcome to our channel History of Coins, where we explore the hidden gems of numismatics. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare 1-cent coins, cause some of these coins are rare among collectors and are worth millions. So today, we are gonna uncover the rarest coins and their values. So make sure to watch the complete video and find out if you have one of these. Now let's continue our today's video. Top 1 today, we're diving deep into one of the most intriguing and surprisingly valuable coins in American history, the 1966 United States 1-cent coin. Now, at first glance, this coin might seem like just another Lincoln penny. Maybe you've seen one in your childhood piggy bank, or it's been lying unnoticed in the bottom of a jar somewhere in your attic. But if you're lucky enough to own a certain version of the 1966 penny, especially one with the right error and in the right condition, you could be holding something far more valuable than 1 cent. So get comfortable, stay sharp, and listen closely. Because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, and you just might realize you've been sitting on a hidden gem all along. Let's set the scene. The year is 1966. America is in the midst of enormous change. The space race is heating up, the Beatles are topping the charts, and the Vietnam War is dominating headlines. Meanwhile, back home, the U.S. Mint is quietly making history in a different way. You see, the mid-1960s were a wild time for American coinage. Due to the nationwide coin shortage that began in 1964, the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce large quantities of coins quickly. As a result, several decisions were made that dramatically affected how coins were made and distributed. And one of those decisions directly affected the 1966 Lincoln penny. One of the most important things to know is that in 1965, 1966, and 1967, no mint marks were used on any U.S. coins. This was done to discourage collectors from hoarding coins based on their mint origins, as the mint needed more coins to stay in circulation. So, all 1966 pennies were struck without a mint mark, and that already makes them part of a special 3-year period in coinage history. But what really sets certain 1966 pennies apart, what makes them rare and valuable, are the errors. Let's talk about those. First, there's the double die obverse, one of the most coveted types of errors in the coin world. This happens when the coin's image is stamped twice with slight misalignment, creating a distinct doubling effect on the front of the coin. It's often visible in the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date. These kinds of errors are visually striking and extremely collectible because they're easy to identify and very rare. Then we have the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank isn't aligned properly during the minting process. The resulting coin has a design that's shifted dramatically off to one side. Some off-center coins from 1966 can be found with as much as 50 to 80% of the design missing. But the key detail is that the full date must still be visible for the coin to be of high value. If you have an off-center 1966 penny with the date intact, you're holding something special. There are also known examples of die cracks and cuts, raised lines or lumps of metal where the coin die cracked or broke during striking. These are known as progressive die breaks, and collectors go crazy over them because no two are exactly alike. Each one is a one-of-a-kind mistake frozen in time. Another potential goldmine is the broad strike error, which happens when a coin is struck without the retaining collar in place. This results in a larger, smoother coin with a more flattened look and no defined rim. It's an eye-catching error that stands out immediately from normal coins. Now let's talk about condition, because as any seasoned collector knows, condition is everything. A rare error on a worn-out, scratched coin might still be interesting, but it won't fetch top dollar. But a rare error on a mint state coin? That's where things get serious. A coin that hasn't been circulated, that still shines like the day it left the mint, that has crisp details and no damage. That's the dream. Imagine this. You're flipping through an old coin collection that belonged to a grandparent. You see a penny from 1966. It doesn't have a mint mark, as expected, but something looks a little odd. Maybe the letters are doubled. Maybe the coin looks misaligned or oversized. You take a closer look, and suddenly you realize, this isn't just a penny. This is a piece of history, and it might be worth a whole lot more than anyone ever thought. So, just how much can one of these 1966 pennies be worth? Well, if you have a 1966 Lincoln cent with a significant error, like a double die, off-center strike, or broad strike, and it's in uncirculated, mint state condition, then you could be sitting on something truly valuable. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. The value reveal. A rare and pristine 1966 1-cent coin, featuring a Dramatic minting error and certified in top condition, has been sold for an astonishing amount of $80,000. Yes, $80,000. That's $80,000 for a coin that began its life worth a single cent. So the next time you come across a 1966 penny, don't dismiss it. Examine it. Study the date, the design, the shape. You might be looking at something that could change your life. Top 2. We're about to reveal the untold story behind a coin that millions of people handled without a second thought. The 1976 United States 1-cent coin, also known as the Lincoln penny. But here's what most people don't realize. One very special version of this small copper coin has sold for more than the price of a brand new luxury car. You heard that right. A single penny from 1976, the year America celebrated its bicentennial, has been sold for an astonishing amount. But before we get to the value, we're going to take you on a deep dive into what makes this coin so unique, why collectors are obsessed with it, and exactly what you should be looking for if you think you might have one of these gems tucked away in your change jar. Grab a cup of coffee, lean in, and let's explore the 1976 Lincoln penny like never before. Let's start with the setting. It's 1976, a monumental year in American history. The nation is celebrating its 200th birthday. Red, white, and blue are everywhere. Fireworks light up the skies, and people across the country are feeling more patriotic than ever. The U.S. Mint released special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins that year, each one featuring unique, commemorative designs to honor the occasion. But strangely, the 1-cent coin? It didn't receive a special design. The Lincoln penny remained unchanged, still bearing Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. At a glance, it looked like every other penny from the era. But that's exactly what makes it so intriguing. Because hidden within the standard design of the 1976 penny are rare minting errors that can turn this everyday coin into a true collector's treasure. Let's break down what makes some 1976 pennies incredibly valuable. Point 1 of the most important things to understand is error coins. These are coins that were misstruck or improperly made at the U.S. Mint. And in the world of numismatics, errors are like buried treasure. Let's talk about one of the most desirable, the double die. This occurs when the coin is struck twice by the die, but slightly misaligned. The result is a visible doubling in key areas like the date, the word liberty, and the phrase, "In God we trust." These errors are easy to miss if you're not looking carefully, but once you know what to look for, they're unmistakable. Another prized error is the off-center strike, where the coin blank was not aligned correctly during minting. These coins have part of the design missing, and the more off-center it is, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. But here's the kicker. For it to hold top value, the full date must be visible. A 1976 penny that's 50% off-center and still shows the complete date? That's money in your pocket. There's also the repunched mint mark, known as RPM, especially on pennies minted in Denver. In 1976, mint marks were still being applied by hand, and sometimes the worker would accidentally punch the D more than once in slightly different positions. The result is a ghosted or doubled mint mark, a minor detail, but one that collectors go wild for. Then you've got the broad strike error, which happens when a coin is struck outside of its normal collar, leading to a stretched, rimless edge. It's a visually dramatic mistake, and when combined with the historical context of 1976, it becomes even more desirable. Now here's where things get really exciting. Condition. As any serious collector knows, condition is king. A valuable coin must be not only rare but also well-preserved. Coins that have never been circulated, what we call mint state, hold the most value. They still shine. Their details are sharp and untouched. No scratches, no dents, no wear. It's as if the coin was frozen in time the moment it was struck. So now, picture this. You're rummaging through an old coin collection, or maybe even going through your pocket change. You come across a 1976 penny. It catches your eye, maybe something looks odd. You take a closer look. The lettering seems doubled, or maybe it's struck slightly off-center. You check the date, still perfectly visible. You realize, this is no ordinary penny. This could be the kind of coin that collectors dream about. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, the value. Point one of these rare 1976 1-cent coins, featuring a dramatic minting error. In pristine uncirculated condition, authenticated and certified by top grading services, has sold for an extraordinary total of $76,000. Yes, $76,000 for a coin that originally cost just 1 cent. This is why we love coins. Because sometimes, the most valuable things are the ones hiding in plain sight. A penny tossed aside by one person might be a fortune for another. So before you spin that next copper coin, take a moment. Check the date. Examine the details. You never know, the next rare treasure might be sitting right in your palm. Top 3, we're diving into one of the most underestimated coins in your collection, the 1971 Lincoln penny. Now, you might be thinking, what could possibly be special about a 1971 1-cent coin? And you're not alone. Most people would glance at this coin, toss it into a change jar, and forget about it. But if you're one of the lucky few who takes a closer look, you might just discover something incredibly rare. In fact, one of these pennies, yes, from 1971, has been sold for a jaw-dropping amount of money. And no, we're not talking a few $100 or even a couple thousand. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why one of these humble pennies is worth tens of thousands of dollars. Let's set the scene. The year is 1971. The United States is adjusting to a rapidly changing economy. Nixon is in the White House, and the country is moving into a new era of politics, pop culture, and yes, coinage. That year, the U.S. Mint struck hundreds of millions of 1-cent coins. On the surface, these Lincoln cents followed the same design tradition that started in 1909, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But here's the catch: not all 1971 pennies were created equal, and a small number of them ended up with minting errors and anomalies so unique that they've become prized possessions in the world of coin collecting. Let's talk about what makes these coins stand out and why they're commanding such high prices today. First up, the double die obverse, a collector's dream. A double die occurs when the coin die is misaligned during the minting process, causing a second impression that slightly overlaps the first. It creates a distinctive doubling effect that's most noticeable in the words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and especially in the date. Not all 1971 pennies have this doubling, but those that do are instantly recognizable to an experienced eye, and their value skyrockets. Then we have the ever-exciting off-center strikes. These coins were struck when the blank coin wasn't properly positioned inside the press. The result is a coin where part of the design is cut off, sometimes by 10%, 20%, or even more. A 1971 penny with a 50% off-center strike, with the full date visible, is a rare and highly sought-after error. And when found in excellent condition, it can be worth a small fortune. But the surprises don't stop there. Another key error from this year is the repunched mint mark, especially for pennies struck at the Denver Mint. Back in 1971, the mint marks were still applied manually, which means errors like double punch Ds, known as RPMs, occasionally slip through. These small details, invisible to most people, are exactly what collectors are searching for. And let's not forget about die cracks, cuds, and broad strikes. Die cracks create thin raised lines on the coin due to a cracked die. Cuds appear when part of the die breaks off completely, leaving a blob of metal on the coin. Broad strikes, on the other hand, result in coins that appear wider and smoother around the edges because the collar die was missing during the strike. These aren't everyday errors, and they can send a coin's value through the roof, especially when found on a 1971 penny. Now let's talk condition. Even with the right error, condition is everything. Collectors look for coins in mint state, untouched, uncirculated, and flawless in detail. If your 1971 penny has a rare error and is in pristine condition with its original luster, then you might be holding something far more valuable than just 1 cent. So how do you know if you have the right coin? Here's what you should look for. A visible doubling in the date or lettering on the front A mint mark. If present, that looks like it was stamped twice. A coin that looks off-center or oddly shaped. Any strange blobs, lines, or raised areas that aren't part of the normal design. And above all, a coin that looks like it's never been handled or circulated. Imagine this. You're sorting through an old coin jar passed down from a family member. You spot a 1971 penny. At first, you think nothing of it, but something about it looks odd. You look closer, maybe even weigh it, compare it with another penny, and then it hits you. This might be one of those rare error coins you've heard about. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, the value revealed. A 1971 1-cent coin, struck with a rare double die obverse error, in mint condition, and professionally graded, has been sold for a total of $73,000. Yes, $73,000. Not bad for a coin that could have easily slipped through your fingers in a handful of change. This is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. The idea that an ordinary object, something as small as a penny, could hold extraordinary value. A piece of history. A rare minting anomaly. A collector's prize. So don't ignore those old coins lying around your house. Look closely, pay attention, and most importantly, do your research. Because your next discovery could be hiding in plain sight. Top 4 were shining the spotlight on the 1981 United States 1-cent coin, the Lincoln penny. You've probably seen it dozens of times. It might even be sitting right now in a jar in your kitchen or tucked away in a dusty box of childhood memories. But what if I told you that some 1981 pennies, the right ones, in the right condition, with rare minting quirks, have sold for an amount so large, it'll make your head spin? That's right. Today, we're going deep into what makes the 1981 penny so unique, how to spot valuable versions, and why collectors are willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for a coin that most people would never think twice about. Let's start with the basics. In 1981, the Lincoln cent was still being made from 95% copper and 5% zinc, a metal composition that had been in use for decades. But this year was significant for another reason. It marked the end of an era. Just 1 year later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint made a major change. They switched to a cheaper copper-plated zinc composition due to the rising cost of copper. That means 1981 was the last full year for the classic copper penny. For collectors, that alone makes it a notable piece of history. But what makes certain 1981 pennies truly valuable is not just their age or metal, it's the errors, the variations, and the condition. Let's talk about the minting process, because that's where the real magic, and sometimes, the real mistakes happen. Each year, millions upon millions of pennies are struck at the U.S. Mint. But no minting process is perfect. In 1981, errors occurred just like any other year. And when it comes to coin collecting, errors are everything. First up, one of the most famous and sought-after mistakes, the double die obverse. This is when the coin is struck more than once by the die, but slightly misaligned. The result? A clear and visible doubling in key areas like Liberty, In God We Trust, and especially the date. Spotting a 1981 penny with this kind of doubling, particularly on the obverse, is like finding a needle in a haystack, but it could be worth a small fortune. Then there's the off-center strike. A beautiful mistake that occurs when the blank isn't centered properly in the press. This causes part of the coin's design to be missing, sometimes drastically. A 1981 penny that's 40% or more off-center, with the full date still visible, is an absolute jackpot for collectors. Another hidden gem is the repunched mint mark, or RPM. In 1981, pennies were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Denver pennies carry a small D mint mark under the date. Sometimes, this mint mark was accidentally punched into the die more than once, slightly offset, creating a doubled or shadowed effect. These RPM errors are subtle but very collectible, and a clean one in mint state condition is worth far more than its face value. Now let's talk about something that's often overlooked. Proof coins. In 1981, the San Francisco Mint also produced proof pennies, high-quality coins struck for collectors, with a mirror-like finish. These coins were never intended for circulation. But occasionally, due to packaging mistakes or curious hands, a proof coin ends up out in the world. If you ever find a 1981 penny with an S mint mark and a mirror-like surface, hold on to it tight. A proof coin in flawless condition can carry significant collector value. And here's the kicker: condition is everything. A coin with a rare error might still be worth something if it's circulated. But to fetch the big numbers, it needs to be in mint state, meaning it shows no signs of wear, has full original luster, and has never been used in everyday transactions. These coins are graded on a 70-point scale by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, and only coins graded MS 65 or higher tend to fetch premium prices. So now, picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through some old change, or maybe helping a relative clean out an attic box. You pick up a 1981 penny. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But then, something catches your eye. The lettering looks doubled. The mint mark looks unusual. The coin seems flawless. You put it under a magnifying glass, compare it to a regular penny, and suddenly, your hands are shaking. You might be holding a rare error coin. You might be holding a treasure. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Just how much can the right 1981 penny be worth? A rare 1981 Lincoln cent, featuring a well-defined mint error such as a double die or off-center strike, and preserved in flawless mint state condition, has been sold for a staggering total of $70,000. Yes, $70,000, all from a coin that most people pass over every single day. So, the next time you come across a penny, especially one from 1981. Take a closer look. It could be copper, it could be rare, and it just might be your lucky day. Top 5, we're going to explore a coin that you've probably overlooked more times than you can count, the 1978 United States 1 cent. Yes, you heard that right, a penny. But hold on. Before you dismiss it as just another piece of pocket change, let me tell you this. The 1978 penny is much more than it seems. You may not know it, but this little coin, often tossed around without a second thought, can hold a serious treasure, especially when it has one of those special, hard-to-find errors. So sit tight, because by the end of this video, you might look at your pocket change in a completely different way. You're going to hear about the rare errors, what makes this coin so valuable, and why collectors are paying big money for a 1978 penny. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one. Let's start with a quick look at history. In 1978, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies. The Lincoln cent had been in circulation for nearly 70 years by then, and the design had remained mostly unchanged. On the front of each penny, you'd find Abraham Lincoln's portrait facing right, and on the back, the iconic Lincoln Memorial in all its glory. But the real question is, what makes some of these pennies from 1978 so valuable, while others are barely worth a penny? Well, as with most things in coin collecting, the key to value lies in the rarity and condition of the coin. While most 1978 pennies you come across are common and in fairly circulated condition, the truly valuable ones come from specific errors or minting mistakes that occurred during production. First up, let's talk about the double die obverse, one of the most coveted errors in the coin collecting world. The double die occurs when the coin die strikes the penny twice in a misaligned way, creating a doubled image on the coin. This is most often seen in the date and letters around Abraham Lincoln's portrait, like the word liberty and the phrase, "In God we trust." These double images give the penny a unique, layered look that collectors immediately recognize, and when found on a 1978 penny, they can be worth a small fortune. Next, let's talk about off-center strikes. This is another error that happens when the blank coin is not properly aligned in the press. As a result, part of the design is missing or cut off. An off-center penny, especially one that's severely misaligned, becomes a rare and highly collectible piece. If you ever find a 1978 penny that's 50% off-center or more, with the full date still visible, you've hit the jackpot. These coins can command some of the highest prices at auctions and among private collectors, and it doesn't end there. Repunchment marks, RPMs, are another possible error on the 1978 penny. In 1978, the U.S. Mint was still hand-punching the mint marks, which could occasionally cause multiple impressions of the same mint mark, creating a doubled or shadowed D on the coin, indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint. These RPMs are subtle, but when you find one, they add a premium to the coin's value. Of course, one of the most important factors in determining a coin's worth is condition. A coin with an error may be valuable, but if it's worn down, scratched, or heavily circulated, its value could be drastically lower. Uncirculated coins, ones that show no signs of wear and have a clean, original shine, are the ones that collectors are really after. If you have a 1978 penny that has been well preserved and has one of these rare errors, you could be holding something much more valuable than its face value. Now, let's break down the real value of these rare 1978 pennies. You might be wondering, how much can a single penny from 1978 really be worth? Well, the answer might surprise you. If you happen to find a flawlessly preserved 1978 penny, especially one with a rare minting error like a double die obverse or an off-center strike, you could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars. And here it is, for a 1978 penny with a well-documented error, like a double die or off-center strike, in pristine condition, the value can reach as much as $67,000. Yes, you heard me right. $67,000 for a penny that most people would simply overlook. Imagine going through a box of old coins, finding that perfect 1978 penny, and realizing you've just struck it rich. So the next time you're sorting through some old change, take a second to check out those 1978 pennies. Look closely for doubling, off-center strikes, and any other unusual marks or defects. You never know, the penny that seems like just another piece of copper could be worth a small fortune. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about rare and valuable coins like the 1978 penny, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on another incredible coin discovery. Thanks for watching. and happy collecting. You might just have a hidden treasure in your pocket.